The brush was supposed to be sterile, yet another woman's cells shimmered silver along its bristles before it touched the next patient's slide. Amabel Corliss caught the tray with both gloved hands. Stop processing. Across the Royal Women's Cytology office, lamps hummed over rows of glass, labels, and frightened silence. The moonlamp above her bench deepened from blue to white. On the screening brush, a ghost-like cellular outline clung beneath the fresh collection fibers. Whose body had this already entered? The junior aide reached for the tray. Director Finn said all delayed batches must be cleared before noon. No result leaves my bench. The aide's face tightened. Behind the privacy screen, Mrs. Elian Vale waited for a result that might calm her or send her for urgent care. A mixed sample could do either falsely. It could tell a sick woman she was safe. It could tell a healthy woman to fear herself. Amabel lifted the brush into the moonlamp, ignoring the cold sting that raced through the faint crescent burn near the base of her left thumb. Crushed fiber tips. Flattened collecting edge. A second cellular pattern beneath the first, silver blue and unmistakable. This brush was used before, she said. The laboratory doors opened. Alpha King Lucan Wraith entered with laboratory director Osric Finn beside him. Lucan was 25, tall and broad-shouldered in a dark navy medical command coat clasped with silver wolf claws. His bronze-fair face was severe and beautiful. Storm-gray eyes ringed faint amber, black hair brushed back from a sharp widow's peak. A narrow white scar crossed the bridge of his nose. Amabel hated that she noticed any of it while a patient's future sat trembling on a tray. Osric's gaze went first to the brush, then to her hand around it. "Your Majesty, this is the examiner I warned you about." Amabel turned the tray so Lucan could see the glowing fibers. This was logged sterile. It carries a prior cellular outline. "Moonlamp artifact," Osric said smoothly. "Miss Corliss has been overexposing samples and frightening patients with false contamination claims." "I have made one claim," Amabel said, "because one brush is already too many." Lucan looked from the brush to the patient file. "Can the moon fiber diagnose either woman?" "No." "Can it identify who was sampled first?" "Not by name. Only that custody has been mixed." Osric gave a grave sigh. "Then it proves mishandling, not supply failure. Her bench should be sealed before panic spreads through every women's clinic in the territory." The word panic moved through the room like spilled acid. Behind the screen, Mrs. Vale whispered, "Is that my sample?" Amabel stepped between the screen and the officials. "No patient name is spoken in this hall." Osric's mouth thinned. "Your sentiment is damaging medical order. Privacy is not sentiment." Lucan's jaw tightened. He had the stillness of a man trained to command infections, fires, and borders, and the terrible weakness of trusting the wrong expert quickly. "Until independent review, this laboratory is closed." 2 royal guards came forward with wax seals. Amabel's assistants backed away from the benches, as if their own work had become contagious. Results waited in locked trays. Women waited in clinics. Some would be told nothing. Some would be asked to return without explanation. Some might keep living under a false all clear because no one wanted to admit the tool had touched another body first. Amabel had one breath to choose. If she surrendered the brush to Osric's inspection cabinet, the proof would become his language. If she defied the king, she could lose her place, her license, and the only doorway she had into the truth. She closed her fingers around the silver sample keychain at her waist. "I will seal this brush as patient custody evidence, not laboratory property." Osric laughed softly. "You exceed your station. My station is the path between a woman's body and the result written about it." Lucan's eyes sharpened. The brush stays under joint seal, he said. Director Finn and Miss Corliss both sign. No, Amabel said. Every lamp seemed to quiet. I will sign with a magistrate or independent pathologist. Not the man who wants it called my error. Osric turned to Lucan. This is obstruction. This is custody, Amabel said. And before the bench is sealed, I will record the batch. She moved fast, because obedience was closing around her. Batch M17. Public clinic issue. Sterilization mark need as a lie. She wrote the appointment order, moonlamp reaction, fiberware, and Osric's objection. The guards sealed the outer cabinets. Lucan did not stop them. He also did not take the brush from her. That restraint did not absolve him. When the last wax strip cooled across her laboratory door, Amabel stood in the corridor with her courier locked behind it and the glowing brush sealed in a glass tube against her palm. Then she checked the waste tray waiting for disposal. 2 more supposedly sterile brushes from batch M17 carried faint silver cellular outlines under the moonlamp. Both had been marked new for public clinic patients. By noon, the sealed corridor outside Amabel's laboratory had become a waiting room for women who could not be told whether to fear or trust their own results. Clinic matrons arrived with appointment cards clutched in gloved hands. A young widow asked whether her abnormal notice was real. An older seamstress asked whether her all clear had belonged to someone else. Osric's clerks gave them one answer. All results from Miss Corliss's bench were delayed pending review. Delayed sounded harmless. Amabel knew better. Delayed could mean a lesion growing while a woman was told to wait politely. Delayed could mean a healthy woman lying awake, imagining disease in every ache because a reused brush had carried another body's warning into her slide. She took the only space not yet under Osric's wax, the old records vestibule beside the laundry court. It smelled of soap, steam, and damp paper. She set up 1 moonlamp, 1 weighing scale, 3 clean trays, and a custody book she bought with her own coin from a stationer 2 streets away. No patient names on the cover, she told the first matron. Appointment initials only. Cards stay with the women unless they choose otherwise. The matron looked toward the sealed laboratory door. Director Finn ordered all materials surrendered. Then he may request them through a magistrate. That was how Amabel regained the smallest piece of ground, not by reopening a laboratory, but by giving frightened women receipts for what had touched their bodies. She examined the 2 waste tray brushes first. Under ordinary light, Osric could have called them clean. Under magnification, the fibers told a rougher truth. The bristle tips were feathered, not sharp. The collection heads had tiny crescent bends where repeated washing had pressed them against the sterilizing basin. The batch stamp M17 was faint at the handle edge, rubbed thinner than a single-use tool should allow. When she passed the first brush beneath the moonlamp, silver blue lines bloomed again. Amabel's left thumb stung around the old chemical burn. She steadied her hand and sketched the outline before it faded. The pattern did not name a woman. It did not diagnose. But when she matched the brush number to appointment order, it gained direction. A faint crescent cluster seen after Mrs. Halen's morning appointment appeared beneath the outline on the brush prepared for Mrs. Vale. Then a similar underpattern appeared on the next tool logged new after Mrs. Vale's time slot. Not a random artifact, a sequence. By mid-afternoon, Lucan Wraith came to the vestibule without guards. He filled the narrow doorway in his dark navy coat, black moonstone signet at his hand, the white scar across his nose catching the moonlamp's glow. He did not step over the threshold. "May I see what you have found?" he asked. The question mattered, because yesterday he would have commanded. Amabel placed the custody book between them, but kept one gloved palm over the patient initials. You may see batch numbers, fiberware, and appointment sequence. You may not see full names. His storm gray eyes moved to her covered hand. Agreed. She showed him the worn tips, the repeated M17 marks, the order of outlines. These brushes moved through patients as if washing made them new. Could your lamp create the silver pattern? No. The moon fiber reacts to prior cellular contact, not light alone. But Osric will say otherwise unless the proof leaves my bench. Lucan absorbed that with a stillness that no longer felt like indifference. I can open the seized records. Access is not custody. He looked at her then, truly looked, not at her beauty or defiance, but at the discipline holding both together. What custody would you accept? Magistrate's seal, independent pathologist, patient identities controlled by me unless a woman consents. No royal clerk reading intimate notes aloud to protect a director's reputation. A muscle worked in his jaw. Those terms stand. Respect entered the room carefully, like a man aware he had no right to be welcomed. The door behind him opened before Amabel could answer. Osric Finn stood with a review notice folded in his hand. Your Majesty, Miss Corliss continues unauthorized examination of compromised materials. If she spreads this panic, every result from her bench must be voided. The women waiting outside heard enough. One gasped. Another began to cry. Amabel turned to them first. No one's result is declared void in a hallway. Every affected woman receives a private review and, if needed, a new collection with sealed tools. Osric smiled. With what laboratory? Yours is closed. The cruelty was clean because it was procedural. Lucan's face darkened, but Amabel did not let him rescue the moment. Then I will prepare the technical packet for injunction. She worked until dusk, copying slide numbers, batch stamps, fiber sketches, and appointment card order under the custody book's new seal. It should have been enough to force Osric's records open. At moonrise, a clerk from the review panel returned the packet. Rejected. Osric's office had produced 3 clean duplicate brushes labeled Batch M17, each with sharp fibers, perfect stamps, and no silver reaction at all. According to the panel, Amabel's contaminated tray no longer matched the official tools. Amabel stopped arguing with brushes that could be replaced and began following boxes that had to travel. At dawn, she placed Osric's clean duplicates beside her patient-held sketches. The handles carried the same Batch M17 stamp, but the official brushes looked born untouched. Sharp fiber tips, unscuffed collars, ink too dark at the edge. They were not the tools from her waste tray. They have changed the object, she told Lucan Wraith. He stood beyond the record's vestibule threshold as agreed. No guards at his back, no command in his hands. Then we prove the path. We, Amabel said, is conditional. His storm gray eyes settled on her face. The amber ring around each iris caught the moonlamp until he looked almost wolf-lit. Name the condition. You may unlock administrative doors. You may request records through Magistrate Iden. You may not question patients, enter examination rooms, touch patient-held appointment cards, or let any royal clerk read intimate notes. If a woman refuses retesting, refusal does not become evidence against her. Lucan's mouth tightened, but not in anger. Those terms stand, and you will stop calling it panic. He looked toward the corridor, where women waited with folded appointment cards and pale patients. What should I call it? Medical uncertainty caused by violated custody. A breath moved through him. Medical uncertainty caused by violated custody. That first obedience to the truth changed something small and dangerous between them. Magistrate Iden Vale opened the supply receiving archive before noon. Lucan used his black moonstone signet on the outer lock, then stepped back while Iden handled the drawers. Amabel named the records she needed: courier receipts, public clinic requisitions, private clinic deliveries, storage logs, and discarded stock tallies. The public clinic forms were neat. Too neat. Batch M17 was marked fulfilled to 3 district women's clinics with full sterile allotments. Yet each attached courier slip bore a gray routing mark beside the crate number. Private transfer, Amabel said. Iden frowned. It is coded as temperature protection. Screening brushes do not require cold carriage. They found the courier master in the loading yard, a broad-shouldered man named Alden Pike, with ink on his thumbs and distrust in his eyes. He looked first at Lucan, then at Amabel's closed custody book. I delivered sealed boxes where the seal told me, he said. Amabel kept her voice even. I am not asking about patient samples, only crates. Alden hesitated. Lucan stepped backward, deliberately placing a stack of crates between himself and the man. Answer the examiner, not me. That restraint mattered. Alden's shoulders lowered. Batch M17 was split, he said. 3 crates went to Pearl Thorne Private Women's Clinic. Public clinics received older stock from reserve shelves. Director Finn's office signed the exchange. Do you have a route sheet? Had one. He swallowed. An inspector collected originals this morning. Osric had moved faster than fear, but Alden kept his own habit. He tapped the side of his boot and drew out a thin duplicate folded beneath the lining. Drivers keep mileage copies when offices delay pay. The route sheet showed Pearl Thorne receiving sealed M17 boxes 2 hours before the public clinic recorded the same batch as fulfilled. Amabel copied the crate numbers while her burned thumb ached under the pressure of the pencil. The pain steadied her. A small scar could remember what clean reports preferred to erase. By afternoon, Osric adapted. A notice appeared on the vestibule door. Unauthorized patient alarm may compromise public trust. Persons assisting Miss Corliss's private audit may be listed as contributors to screening panic. Beneath it, clerks offered women quiet repeat appointments if they surrendered their old cards first. Amabel tore nothing down. She pierced the notice with her silver sample key, recorded it, and told every woman, "You may retest without surrendering what proves you were here." Then Mrs. Halen stepped from the waiting bench, white-knuckled around a card. "My sister goes to Pearl Thorne." She said their new premium brushes arrived the day my clinic was told supplies were stretched. Amabel did not write the sister's name. She wrote only the clinic, date, and volunteered comparison. The distinction cost time. It also kept the women from becoming exhibits in a fight between officials. At dusk, Lucan returned with Iden's sealed copy of a Pearl Thorne receipt. Premium sterile brushes, batch M17. The serial numbers matched the public clinic tools Amabel had supposedly contaminated. For the first time, Lucan looked not like a king doubting an examiner, but like a man seeing the wall he had helped build around the wrong person. "What do you need next?" he asked. Amabel looked at the sealed lab, the frightened women, and the private clinic receipt in her gloved hand. "Disposal weights," she said. "If public clinics use new single-use brushes, the waste bins should be heavy with proof." That night, the waste ledger arrived with half the month's entries freshly rewritten and smelling faintly of new ink. The new ink on the waste ledger told Amabel where not to look first. Osric wanted her arguing over altered numbers. She set the ledger aside beneath the glass weight and asked for the thing clerks forgot because it smelled too ordinary to matter: the disposal baskets themselves. At sunrise, Magistrate Iden escorted her to the service yard behind the public women's clinic. Lucan Wraith came as far as the gate and stopped there. Dark navy coat sharp against the pale brick, black moonstone signet folded inside his palm instead of displayed. He did not enter until Amabel looked back and nodded. The yard mistress, Cressa Vane, had worked refuse collection for 16 years and had no reverence for laboratory directors. Brush bins are supposed to be sealed after every clinic day, Amabel said. They were light, Cressa answered. Too light for the number of appointments. I complained twice because my tally sheets did not match the hauling charge. Who answered? Director Finn's supply office. Said some clinics had moved to wash and hold disposal. Amabel's fingers tightened around her pencil. Wash and hold is not an approved category for cervical screening. No one asked me what was approved. They told me what to weigh. The first meaningful number came from Cressa's private tally book, not the official ledger. On days when 56 screenings were recorded, the brush disposal weight matched fewer than 20 discarded tools. On the week batch M17 disappeared into confusion, the public clinic's sealed waste was almost empty. Lucan read the figures without speaking. Amabel preferred that to apology. Apology had no weight unless it carried a remedy. By noon, she had 3 columns: public appointments, official brush allotment, actual disposal weight. The columns did not whisper. They accused. Osric arrived at the service yard with 2 inspectors and a physician's grave face borrowed from better men. Miss Corliss is now interrogating refuse staff. This is what happens when panic leaves the laboratory, Cressa snorted. You told me my bins were light because nurses had become efficient. Amabel lifted the tally copy before Osric could make the woman regret speaking. No patient names, no medical histories, only appointments, single-use tools, and weight. Weight cannot prove contamination. No, Amabel said. It proves the public clinics did not discard the number of brushes your office claims they used once. Lucan looked at Osric. Did you authorize wash and hold disposal? Osric's eyes cooled. Temporary conservation language may have been misunderstood by minor staff. It was the first crack. Not guilt, but adjustment. Amabel followed it. At the vestibule that afternoon, she compared Pearlthorne's private purchase records against public batch assignments. The private clinic had advertised premium sterile cervical screening appointments during the same week public clinics reported supply strain. The advertisement never named stolen brushes. It did not need to. New moon fiber collection. Guaranteed sealed tool. Same-day reassurance. A rich woman bought the promise that a poor woman had already been denied. Amabel copied the wording and felt the old ache open beneath her ribs. Lucan noticed. You know someone who trusted a result. My Aunt Maris. She kept her eyes on the receipt because looking at him would make the memory too human. Her all clear was praised as efficient. By the time pain made them look again, the word early no longer belonged to us. The room quieted around the small confession. That is why you stopped the tray before anyone ordered you, he said. That is why I will not let a wrong result become private grief, because officials prefer tidy pages. Lucan's face changed, not into softness, but recognition. I closed your laboratory because I feared public panic. Yes, I told myself panic would harm women. It does. And I feared it more than hidden harm already inside the system. Amabel looked at him then. His beauty had become less dangerous than his willingness to stand inside the ugliness of his reason. She would not comfort him for reaching it. Fear is not neutral when power obeys it, she said. No, Lucan answered. It becomes policy. Osric's answer came before dusk. A formal notice declared every woman attached to Batch M17 eligible for quiet recollection, only if she signed a confidentiality acknowledgement admitting possible appointment confusion. The forms would erase the custody question before any retest began. Amabel set the notice beside Mrs. Halen's patient-held card, Alden Pike's route copy, Cressa's waste tally, and the Pearlthorne receipt. He is not trying to prove the brushes were clean. He is trying to make every woman ask for help in a way that confesses disorder. Lucan's hand moved toward the notice, then stopped. May I read it? She gave it to him because he still remembered to ask. His jaw hardened. This was drafted under the closure authority. Your seal is becoming the door women must crawl through. He bowed his head once, accepting the words as record. Near moonrise, Iden returned from the screening supply approval archive with a board packet Osric had not thought dangerous enough to hide. The top page was an ordinary renewal of Pearl Thorne's private supply privileges. Beneath it lay a public clinic memorandum dated the same week. Sterilize and stretch brush stock until premium allocation stabilizes. The signature was Osric Finn's. Amabel stared at the 2 pages together. The false result was not a laboratory accident. It was policy with a private buyer waiting. The next morning, women came to the records vestibule with 2 kinds of fear. Some feared their results were wrong. Others feared the price of proving it. Osric's confidentiality forms lay in their hands, cream paper promising quiet recollection if each woman acknowledged possible appointment confusion. The phrase looked harmless until Mrs. Halen read it aloud. So if I sign, I agree I may have mistaken my day, my order, or my own sample? You agree to let them blame uncertainty on you before they provide a clean test, Amabel answered. By mid-morning, she had built a retesting board on the vestibule wall. No names, no diagnoses. Only consent numbers, urgency marks from independent physicians, prior result status, and whether the woman still held her appointment card. A high-risk abnormal notice went first. A delayed all clear with symptoms went second. Rank, wealth, and private clinic influence did not appear. A councilwoman from the Independent Women's Health League arrived with 2 sealed boxes and a face like a locked gate. Patient-owned evidence? She asked. Cards, brush tubes, custody receipts, and voluntary statements, Amabel said. No intimate histories. Those remain with physicians unless the patient chooses otherwise. Lucan Wraith stood in the passage beyond the doorway, not entering. Women still looked away when they saw his dark navy coat. Amabel saw him see that. It was not cruelty that made her keep him outside. It was consequence. Transfer witnessed, Magistrate Iden said. Amabel placed the first glass brush tube into the counsel box. Her left thumb stung as the moon fiber inside flashed under the shaded lamp, cold touching the crescent burn near her skin. She did not flinch. Osric arrived before the second box was sealed. You cannot remove medical materials from Royal Laboratory custody, he said. They are patient custody materials linked to disputed collection. They are evidence of your mishandling. They are evidence you keep trying to reach. His eyes sharpened. Then he changed weapons. Every woman who participates risks public correction of her screening record. The panel may need full histories, symptoms, marital status, childbirth records, and examination notes to determine whether collection conditions affected results. The vestibule went silent. A young widow stepped backward. An older seamstress pressed both hands over her collar. Mrs. Halen's mouth trembled around a word she did not speak. Amabel turned from Osric to the women. No one owes a public room her body's history. You may leave. You may retest privately. You may keep your card. Refusal to speak here is not evidence against you. 2 women left anyway. Lucan made one involuntary step toward the doorway. Amabel looked at him once. He stopped. That was the real cost of trust. Not whether he meant well, but whether frightened women could breathe while his seal still hung over their choices. Outside, his voice came low. Director Fenn, no patient history is to be compelled under my closure order. Osric bowed. Then your closure order has become dangerously sentimental, Your Majesty. No, Amabel said before Lucan could answer. It has become less useful to you. She spent the afternoon sorting urgency with Dr. Celine Marr, the independent pathologist Iden had summoned. Dr. Marr was brisk and merciless about sloppy science. This slide contains two cell populations inconsistent with clean collection, Dr. Marr said over the first sample. It cannot support reassurance or alarm. Can you diagnose either woman from it? No. Any official who says otherwise is selling certainty he does not own. That sentence steadied the room. By dusk, 3 affected women had agreed to new collections using sealed brushes, opened in front of them, serial numbers read by the women themselves, and disposal recorded before the tool left site. Dr. Marr confirmed what Amabel needed most. The earlier results could not be trusted, but patients did not have to be named publicly to prove why. Then the seizure order came. Royal Guards arrived with Osric's inspectors, carrying Lucan's original closure seal copied onto fresh warrants. Remaining slides from Amabel's bench, vestibule sketches, custody notes, patient cards, and brush tubes were to be surrendered for central review. Failure to comply could void Amabel's examiner license and suspend all affected retesting. Lucan was not there. He had obeyed her boundary and worked through Iden across the city. His absence, once respectful, now left his old mistake standing in his place. Amabel moved first. She handed the councilwoman the sealed evidence boxes. Take them through the laundry court. Now. An inspector grabbed for Mrs. Halen's card. Amabel stepped between them. Patient held. Royal review supersedes private inconvenience. Not private inconvenience, she said. Bodily custody. Iden blocked the inner door, but the warrants were broad enough to take the remaining slide cabinet. Amabel watched 6 locked trays disappear under Osric's authority. Years of careful work, gone into hands that had already changed the brushes. At midnight, the official notice arrived. Closed medical review. Patient histories first. Supply records afterward. Amabel read it twice while Dr. Marr wrapped the last protected brush tube in plain linen. Osric did not need to prove clean tools if he could make women too ashamed to testify. Lucan came at dawn, rain on his shoulders, and horror in his eyes when he saw the empty slide shelves. Amabel did not soften. Your seal did this, she said. I know. Then you will not enter the review room. He looked as if the order cut, and accepted that it should. Amabel picked up the linen-wrapped brush tube. He wants one woman alone before he looks at the brushes. He will question me first. The closed medical review began with a chair facing the door and a screen meant for shame. Amabel entered before any patient could be called. The room belonged to Osric Finn in everything but name: polished examination table, locked sample cabinet, 2 medical assessors from his panel, and a stack of patient history forms waiting beside an ink pot. Osric looked at the linen-wrapped brush tube in her hand. Miss Corliss, this review concerns women whose collection conditions may have been compromised. Then question the examiner who stopped the compromised collection. You are not the patient under review. No, Amabel said. I am the person you blamed. Start with me. Magistrate Iden sat to one side with Dr. Celine Marr beside him. Both had been admitted only after a written objection. Lucan Wraith remained outside the door as ordered. Amabel could feel the weight of his presence beyond the wall. Dangerous, restrained, and not useful unless he stayed there. Osric opened the first patient history form. Improper preparation, marital irregularity, bleeding history, childbirth history, and appointment confusion can all affect collection quality. They cannot make one sterile brush carry another woman's cells before it touches the next slide. They can explain why untrained patients misunderstand results. Amabel set the linen bundle on the table without opening it. No patient will defend her body before your supply records are examined. Osric's smile stayed mild. You have no authority to control the sequence. I have custody of the evidence you failed to seize. The first assessor reached for the bundle. Amabel moved it back. With consent, under independent witness, not because your hand is nearest. Iden wrote that down. The door opened, and Mrs. Halen was brought in despite Amabel's objection. Her face was pale beneath her bonnet. One hand clutched the appointment card she had refused to surrender. A guard stood too close behind her. Amabel rose. You may decline any question about symptoms, marriage, childbirth, or examination details. You may ask that the brush be examined first. Mrs. Halen swallowed. The brush first. Osric sighed. Coached witnesses rarely sound spontaneous. Protected witnesses often sound alive, Amabel said. Dr. Marr broke the seal on the linen bundle. Inside lay the patient-held brush tube Mrs. Halen had kept from the public clinic, labeled with initials, date, and batch M17. It had never returned to Amabel's laboratory after the closure. It had never entered Osric's cabinet. It had never touched the duplicate tray. Osric produced his own tray. 3 brushes rested inside, clean as a lie, their batch M17 stamps perfect. The official tools show no reaction. Miss Corliss's moonlamp method appears to damage fibers and create artifact outlines. Dr. Marr lifted one official duplicate under magnification. Sharp tips, unused collars, ink too fresh. Opinion, Osric said. Observation, Amabel answered. At Osric's signal, one assessor placed a duplicate beneath the moonlamp. Nothing happened. Then Dr. Marr placed Mrs. Halen's patient-held brush beneath the same moonlamp. Silver blue light climbed the bristles. Amabel's left thumb burned so sharply she nearly lost her breath. The old crescent scar whitened under her glove. On the brush, a ghost-like cellular outline appeared first, thin and incomplete. Beneath it, a second outline glimmered at a different angle, layered like frost under glass. Mrs. Halen made a small sound. Amabel turned toward her, not the panel. This does not diagnose you. It does not name another woman. It proves the brush had prior cellular contact. Dr. Marr leaned close. 2 distinct cellular outlines. The tool was not clean collection equipment. Osric stood. Emotional manipulation. Moon fibers respond to distress. Then use the control, Amabel said. She had prepared for the cleanest lie. Iden admitted 2 sealed, unused brushes from a magistrate-held box, 1 ordinary non-moon fiber swab, and 1 older practice brush deliberately exposed to a training slide in Dr. Marr's presence. Under the moon lamp, the unused moon fiber brushes stayed dark. The ordinary swab stayed dark. The exposed practice brush glowed with 1 outline only. Mrs. Halen's brush still carried 2. The room shifted. Osric's face lost color at the edges, then found a new cruelty. If this review becomes public, every woman attached to Batch M17 risks social exposure. Their husbands, employers, and families may ask why their records are sealed. Amabel folded Mrs. Halen's appointment card into the evidence envelope. Then patient identities stay sealed by order, or the review is medical violence with paperwork. A shout rose in the hall. A folded decree passed through the doorway to Iden's clerk. Lucan did not enter. Iden broke the black moonstone seal and read aloud. Crown secrecy waived over laboratory closure correspondence, supply approvals, screening, brush procurement, sterilization directives, courier transfers, private clinic allocations, and enforcement warrants. Royal authority over this inquiry suspended pending tribunal judgment. No patient history may be compelled under the Alpha King seal. Osric turned toward the door. Your Majesty cannot abandon medical order to an examiner's vendetta. Lucan's voice came from outside, low and controlled. I already gave order to the wrong man. Proceed without my command. Protection without possession. Power set down outside the examination room. Amabel felt it and still kept her hand on the evidence. At moonrise, Iden moved the review into the outer medical hall under privacy screens. Patient names remained sealed. The official duplicates stayed dark beneath the lamp. Mrs. Halen's patient-held brush glowed again, carrying 2 silver cellular outlines for every assessor to see. Iden looked at Amabel. This requires public tribunal. Yes, she said, with private bodies protected and public supplies examined first. The public medical tribunal began with names locked away. Privacy screens lined the hall not to hide the evidence but to keep women's bodies from becoming theater. Amabel placed 3 sealed boxes on the tribunal table beneath Magistrate Iden's mark. Patient-held brushes and appointment cards, supply chain records, and private medical testimony that would not be read aloud. Osric Finn objected before the first seal was broken. A tribunal without full patient histories cannot judge collection quality, he said. Amabel faced the assessors. A tribunal that begins with women's histories before brush custody is not judging science. It is hunting shame. Mrs. Halen sat behind the nearest screen by choice, her gloved hand visible around her appointment card. The brush first, she said. Iden nodded. Supply evidence first. The moonlamp was raised. Dr. Celine Marr placed Mrs. Halen's patient-held batch M17 brush beneath it. Silver blue light threaded through the bristles, and 2 cellular outlines appeared, one pale beneath the other. Amabel's left thumb stung where the crescent chemical burn hid under her glove, but she did not move away. This proves mixed custody, she said. Not diagnosis, not identity, not fault in the woman tested. Osric's official duplicate brush went under the same moonlamp. It stayed dark. Not the same tool, Amabel said. Osric smiled. Or because Miss Corliss preserved one contaminated object and built panic around it. Amabel opened the second box. Then let the path decide. Alden Pike, the courier master, took the witness chair with his mileage copy. He did not look at Lucan, who stood below the dais as a witness rather than king. Batch M17 was split by Director Finn's office, Alden said. Sealed crates went to Pearl Thorne Private Women's Clinic. Public clinics received reserve stock. Amabel laid his route sheet beside Pearl Thorne's receipt. Time? Pearl Thorne received the sealed M17 crates 2 hours before the public clinic recorded that same batch as fulfilled. Osric's voice sharpened. Drivers misunderstand reallocations. Drivers count miles when we are not paid, Alden replied. Amabel brought out Cressa Vane's waist tallies next. The yard mistress stood with sleeves rolled and chin high, looking as if she would rather weigh every official in the room. On the week batch M17 was listed as used once and discarded, Amabel said, the public clinic's brush waste weighed less than half the appointments required. Cressa nodded. Too light for single-use tools. I reported it twice. To whom? Iden asked. Director Fenn's supply office. And what phrase did they give you? Wash and hold disposal. Amabel placed Osric's memorandum beside the tally. Sterilize and stretch brush stock until premium allocation stabilizes. The words looked small on paper and monstrous in meaning. Osric stood. Temporary conservation language, not reuse on patients. Dr. Marr stepped forward. Single-use cervical-screening brushes are not conservation tools. Washing does not erase cellular custody. Amabel then read only numbers, never names, appointment sequence, brush serials, batch stamps, patient-held cards, the silver outline found after one time slot appearing beneath the next brush's reaction. The private clinic's premium advertisement promising new moon fiber collection during the week, public clinics were told supplies were stretched. A rich woman had bought certainty from a box assigned to a poor woman's clinic. Osric tried again. Pearl Thorne purchased lawful upgrades. Using public serials, Amabel said. She turned to the assessors. If batch M17 was lawfully fulfilled to the public clinic, why were its serials on Pearl Thorne's receipt? If public clinics discarded single-use brushes, why were the bins light? If the official duplicate brushes are genuine, why do patient-held tools from the same appointments carry prior cellular outlines? And if this was my sampling error, why did Director Finn sign an order to sterilize and stretch stock before my bench was accused? The hall did not erupt. It went quiet in the way a wound goes quiet when pressure finally finds the source. Iden delivered the finding before the first hour ended. The tribunal finds probable reuse of public clinic screening brushes, falsified custody records, improper private allocation of public batches, intimidation of patients, and concealment requiring prosecution review. The main shape of Osric's system collapsed there, in daylight, before he could hide behind any woman's history. Lucan Wraith was called next. He did not wear his medical command coat like armor now. He stood below the dais, black moonstone signet on his hand, dark hair controlled, the white scar across his nose severe under the lamp. Beautiful, dangerous, and finally, without the shelter of certainty. Iden asked, "Did Director Finn advise closing Miss Corliss's laboratory?" "Yes," Lucan said. "Did you require independent brush custody review first?" "No." "Did you hear patient testimony before sealing the lab?" "No." "Did your closure authority empower seizure warrants and closed history review notices?" Lucan looked toward the privacy screens. "It was used that way. I failed to forbid it. That failure was mine." Osric's control cracked. "Your Majesty cannot make yourself guilty to satisfy an examiner who wants your attention." Every eye turned to Amabel. She felt the old anger rise, born from her Aunt Maris's false, all clear, and all the tidy words that had outlived her. "This is not about my attention," Amabel said. "It is about whether a woman's body becomes evidence only when officials need to blame her, and invisible when officials profit from ignoring her." Lucan did not defend himself. He bowed his head once, to the screens, not to her. "I closed the wrong room," he said. "I trusted hierarchy over custody. I protected order while patients carried uncertainty." Osric tried to speak, but Iden ordered him removed pending formal charges. Pearl Thorne's supply privileges were suspended before adjournment. Osric's office lost custody over brush procurement, laboratory complaints, and patient recall notices by emergency order. Relief moved through the hall. Amabel knew relief could become a curtain if pulled too quickly. Lucan removed the black moonstone signet from his hand and set it on the table beside the laboratory closure order. "The closure began under my seal," he said. "A recalled result is not repair. Not unless every affected woman receives clean retesting, treatment access, and custody of the truth written about her." Amabel looked at the ring, then at the sealed patient boxes. "Then tomorrow," she said, "bring care they can use, not regret they can admire." Repair began before the tribunal benches cooled. Lucan Wraith did not send a proclamation. He stood in the women's clinic, beneath the closure order that had ruined Amabel's name, and read the recall himself. "Every result connected to batch M17, reserve, stock, substitution, or disputed brush custody is recalled," he said. "No woman is at fault for trusting the result given to her." No applause followed. Amabel preferred silence. The first line formed at the retesting desk by consent number, not title. Dr. Celine Marr opened sealed brush boxes in front of each woman who chose retesting. The serial number was read aloud by the patient herself, written on a custody card she kept, and matched to a disposal mark before the brush left sight. Some women cried when told their names would not be called across the hall. Lucan paid from royal reserves that morning. Urgent retesting, examinations, transport, lost wages, and treatment deposits for women whose delayed care could not wait. Pearl Thorne's premium rooms were taken under emergency order and used for public patients first. Osric Finn was removed before noon, held for prosecution over falsified custody records, unlawful reuse directives, patient intimidation, and diversion of public supplies. His screening supply board was dissolved. Pearl Thorne lost approval. Every private clinic that purchased public cereal batches faced audit. Amabel signed none of that as decoration. She reviewed the custody reform line by line. No central cabinet without patient access, she said. Lucan stood across the table with his black moonstone signet absent from his hand. Written. No recall notice may require admission of appointment confusion. Written. Every collection tool serial is visible to the patient before use and recorded after disposal. Written. And my laboratory reopens under independent oversight, not royal gratitude. Lucan looked at her, storm gray eyes steady, amber ring faint in the clinic light. He seemed younger without the signet, and more dangerous because he was choosing not to hide behind command. I would trust nothing less, he said. For 12 days, repair was not beautiful. It was lists, private rooms, women changing their minds, physicians explaining uncertainty without cruelty, couriers returning stolen stock, and Amabel sleeping with custody cards beside her pillow because she still did not trust any cabinet she had not locked herself. Her crescent burn healed from moonlamp stings. Her hands did not stop checking labels in dreams. Once after midnight, she found Lucan outside the reopened laboratory in wolf form. He was massive and charcoal black, silver gray ruff bright under the moon, storm gray eyes ringed faint amber, the narrow scar crossing the bridge of his muzzle, dark silver crescent markings over his right shoulder and foreleg. He lay several paces from the door, keeping Osric's loyalists back. Amabel stopped on the steps. You cannot make guarding into courtship. The wolf lowered his head. By morning, magistrate guards stood there instead, and Lucan was signing treatment warrants until ink stained his fingers. She hated how much that mattered. The last unresolved notice belonged to Mrs. Brine, who had received an all clear from a disputed brush and then burned every summons from shame. Amabel went alone, with no guard, no king, and no patient history form. She sat in the kitchen while Mrs. Brine kneaded bread too hard. No one will make your body an argument, Amabel said. You choose what happens next. Mrs. Brine chose retesting at dusk, a woman physician, no public waiting room, and a custody card kept in her own Bible. The clean moonfiber brush stayed dark under the lamp before collection. Afterward, it went into disposal with one mark, one serial, one witness, and one patient who finally breathed. Only then did Amabel return to the laboratory door. The wax seals were gone. Her magnifying lens rested at her collar. The silver sample keychain hung at her waist, warm from her own hand. Inside, clean benches waited, not innocent, but answerable. Lucan approached without announcement. All affected women have been contacted or visited, he said. Retesting access is active. Treatment funds are released. Crown privilege remains waived. I accepted medical counsel censure this morning, and patient custody access is law for 5 years. I read the order. You should hear one thing without paper. He paused. I am sorry I trusted rank before proof. Amabel touched the crescent burn near her left thumb. Sorry is not a result. No, he said, but it is mine. She looked through the laboratory window. Dr. Marr was training a new examiner to let the patient read the serial first. Mrs. Halen sat nearby with her card in her lap, no longer waiting for men to decide what she was allowed to know. Amabel opened the door, then looked back. One walk, Lucan. No court announcement, no claim, no reward. His eyes brightened with restraint. One walk. They walked past the reopened laboratory as moonlight silvered the glass. Behind them, the clean brushes stayed dark under the moonlamp, not because magic had forgiven anyone, but because the truth was finally in the patient's hand.